My mic is muted. There we go. Let's start it out with a bang here. Hey, everybody, I'm Nick Valencia. Welcome to the latest edition of Nick Valencia Live. It's Tuesday, and that means it's election day in certain parts of the country, including right here in Georgia. I'm not wearing my sticker today because I voted last week. I got in on that early voting crowd. Really excited about voting day. A lot to get into today. We've got some really great guests lined up. But first, we want to start with some breaking news out of my hometown in Northeast LA, where just about within the last hour, we've seen video and images of what appears to be Border Patrol agents at a familiar site at the Home Depot in Cypress Park. If that place sounds familiar, it's because we've reported live from there when there was a raid happening in real time. And again, it seems just a day after the Los Angeles Dodgers had their victory parade in the city, ICE is back out on the streets. Trump's immigration forces are back out on America's streets and very active in Northeast LA. Those images of somebody in tactical gear would appear to be a Border Patrol agent walking through the aisles of a Home Depot. And according to reports, those federal agents got into an accident in the parking lot with somebody who, according to those reports, there was a baby in the car, and the baby was taken because the mother of that child was also taken into custody. No further details on that information, but that's just the initial reporting we're getting out here from what's happening right now in Northeast LA, some active immigration raids. We want to pivot, though, to today. And the topic of today is Election Day, November 4th. And it's a big day for the Democratic Party and for the Republican Party. The gains made by Trump in places like New Jersey with Latino voters are going to be up for a test today, a bellwether. We're going to be talking to Kristian Ramos, Democratic political strategist, about the hopes there for Shirelli in the governor's race in New Jersey. Also, in neighboring New York, we're seeing a lot of activity out of New York and a lot of enthusiasm around the candidate Zoran Mamdani. Mamdani, of course, young, energetic. He's been spotted out at nightclubs at 2 a.m. campaigning. He was crossing a bridge in New York during sunrise today. He is active and ever present on social media. And then you compare that with who he's running up against. Andrew Cuomo, a sort of statesman in the Democratic Party, a longtime member of the Democratic Party, and sort of part of the establishment. And when you look at these two individuals, it isn't necessarily old guard versus new guard. It's more so money versus, the haves versus the have-nots, and people that are threatened by someone like Zoran Mamdani, threatening their power, their hold on to it. And I want to play you a clip. It was yesterday, or I guess a couple days ago, that our President Trump, was on 60 Minutes, and he gave an interview in which he seemed to give a halfway endorsement towards Democratic candidate Andrew Cuomo. That endorsement went from halfway to a full-throated one, saying that he would pick Cuomo over a socialist or a communist like Mamdani. I want to play you some videos here, and we'll react on the other side.
And some breaking news right now as President Trump has officially endorsed former Governor Andrew Cuomo to be the mayor of New York City. Again, this is the Republican president giving his endorsement to the Democrat here. The move coming just a day after a 60 Minutes interview in which the president said he would pick Cuomo over the Democratic nominee Zoran Mamdani, but he did not officially endorse him then. All of this coming as key races in New Jersey and Virginia are also going to be decided tomorrow, which would have long-term implications on the political landscape of the entire country.
He endorses Cuomo, but there is a Republican in this race who did not get the president's endorsement. Curtis Silva, he didn't get that full-throated endorsement from the president, but Andrew Cuomo did. And he was on Urban Radio. G. Ebro, one of my favorite hip-hop radio show hosts, was questioning Andrew Cuomo about that endorsement. Check out his reaction.
Americans and the Jamaican Americans and the Haitian Americans that are getting ran down on by ICE and mistreated by ICE. And you know where that's coming from? Your boy was just on 60 Minutes, Cuomo, saying that you're his guy.
No.
Trump said you're his candidate. If he had to pick a bad Democrat or what did he say? Or a communist. Or a communist, he's picking you.
Hello?
I think that they cut him off. I think he had to rap.
You just get oh.
Did he hang up? Did he have to rap? What happened there? It seemed like he didn't get impressed there by the host of that show. Check out that and compare that to what Zoran Mamdani said to a crowd of his supporters.
While I'm looking to speak to Donald Trump's voters, Andrew Cuomo is looking to speak to Donald Trump's donors. That's the difference here. These are New Yorkers who voted for the president in the hopes of having a lower cost of living, and who instead found that their despair was exploited as a means by which to deliver the political prosecution of Donald Trump's enemies and the enacting of the single largest deportation force in American history. Now, we knew in the primary that Andrew Cuomo was being funded by the same billionaire donors that gave us Donald Trump's second term. I did not, however, anticipate Andrew Cuomo going from being Donald Trump's puppet to being so nakedly his parrot.
Things getting real with just a few hours before polls close there in New York. And we want to bring in now Democratic strategist Kristian Ramos to talk all about what's going on in New York. Kristian, welcome to the show. How you doing, man? Good to have you back.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. We talked this morning. Tell me about what you see going on in the New York's race, why it's so crucial, why it's so important, and why Mamdani has been able to inject this sort of enthusiasm to voters that, for other, lack of a better word, have been disillusioned about the political process.
I think Mamdani checks a lot of boxes for Democratic voters in New York, and especially a Democratic Party that has struggled mightily to turn the page on a disastrous election in 2024. And what I mean by that is he's young, he's dynamic, he's a person of color, and he understands how to use social media in a way that few candidates out there can say they do. And I think part of it, and a big part of it, is his willingness to tackle affordability and not shy away from these really tough conversations around Israel and Gaza, and have nuanced conversations and positions that resonate with a large part of our base. And I think that is one thing that has really shifted. I think everybody knows about the affordability piece. I think everybody knows that costs are too high, rent is too damn high, and he's speaking to that brilliantly. But I think he's also willing to speak with nuance about what is happening with Israel, Gaza. That resonates a lot with the activist base. And it used to be something that I think a lot of people would have to duck or try to duck. And I think he's showing you can speak to it, you have to speak to it, because it is something that is critically important and a question of moral authority now within the party.
It's interesting that, you say that it's something that you used to have to duck. And now, he's getting painted this broad stroke of being a communist or a socialist, and it doesn't seem to be affecting him at all. This sort of attack of narrative hasn't stuck yet. What do you think about that?
And I think it's simple. There's a polling question that I think is often overlooked, which is with us or against us, right? And I think Mamdani is clearly with workers. He's clearly with voters. And I think when I say workers, we have this idea that it's like, somebody with a hard hat in a factory, or he's wearing flannel and
Sure.
All of that. Really, workers is a gig economy guy. Workers is somebody who's doing TaskRabbit stuff in a place like New York, somebody who is taking out, works at a restaurant and is commuting, from far away. And I think he is authentically speaking to their experiences, and he's saying that he's going to stick up for them. And I think authenticity, honesty, and trust is a big thing for somebody like Mamdani. And he's proven that you can be a democratic socialist and a person of color and have these conversations in real ways with voters, and it resonates.
And have success. I mean, it was because of him a lot of us learned about ranked choice voting, being able to rank, the making politics more equitable. I want to turn a little bit here and address what we showed at the start of the show. The endorsement that Cuomo got from Trump, were you surprised by that? I mean, why isn't he talking about Curtis Silva at all? Why isn't he endorsing the Republican in this race? What's that all about?
I'm sure Trump hates Cuomo. I'm not even sure. Trump is the troll in chief. The guy likes to troll everybody. That's really all he's doing, is trolling Cuomo, trolling New Yorkers. We
call him the WWE president here. He has great optics. He's, he's strong and wrong. That's what we say here.
Strong and wrong. And I feel like this, Adrian Carrasquillo, who we always have a joke about the NWO thing where he's Hulk Hogan and he goes to the back and he pulls out his chair. This to me feels very a piece of that, which is like he just knows it's good theater. And hey, if it stops people from talking about Epstein files and everything else and the government being shut down, great. Trump's all for that.
Yeah, anything to distract from the real issues at hand. I mean, if there's one thing that they don't want to talk about is, shining the light where there's darkness, putting a spotlight on things that they're doing wrong. I want to pivot here from New York to New Jersey, and that's part of the reason you called this morning saying, "Hey, this is a big deal going on in New Jersey." I want to talk about the ground made by President Trump in 2024 with the Latino voters, and why you think this is going to be a bellwether today on Election Day.
I think this election in particular is a referendum on Trump and his horrible economy. And I don't want to take anything away from Mickey Sherrill, who, from all accounts, is running a very good campaign,
Right.
closing strong, I should say. And Trump did make a lot of gains in Passaic County and a lot of these places in New Jersey with some of the Latino voters. And so what I've heard from folks on the ground who are knocking the doors, I heard two things. One, people at the doors, Latinos in particular, Unidos Action Fund is doing a lot of work there. Rafael Callazo is on the doors. He's talking to folks. And what he tells me is that they're very overwhelmed, the Latinos down there. And it's usually one issue or the other, but it's all compounded. The economy's terrible. Everything costs more. I'm a third generation Latino, an American citizen for all, but I have to get a passport for my 10-year-old because I'm worried he's going to get snatched by ICE. And I carry my passport everywhere. And I am questioning my place in this country right now.
Yeah.
And so that is a very, very toxic stew for Jack Citarelli to be so closely associated with Trump. That's one. And then two, what I'm hearing is Citarelli is spending a lot of money in Passaic County to try to reach these Latino voters. But there's Latinos all over New Jersey. And so, yes, is he competing there? Is he spending resources like the Sherrill campaign is all over the state with, a Latino vote person in the north and in the south and is doing that work. And I think, it's going to be a competitive race. I think Sherrill's going to win. And I think she's going to win because of Latinos being so disgusted with the economy and so disgusted with what's happening with ICE and the immigration situation, which is legalized racial profiling in a place like New Jersey where there is no border, there is no anything.
Well, everywhere is a border state now. That's what Trump has been successful at. He's been making Arkansas a border state. He's made Georgia a border state. New York, New Jersey, everyone considers it, like that they're under this threat from illegal immigration. But it's been 10 months that we have of evidence that they are not working in good faith. They're not just going after the bad hombres, the bad actors, the murderers, the pedophiles, the rapists, the people that no one wants to live next door to. They're going after the cocineros, the tamaleras. They're going after, the gig workers. They're going after people who are adding value to this country. And the Latino voters, as you say, in Passaic County, where there's 40% of them, they're going to have to make some tough decisions because they see people like them, Kristian, that are being ripped off the streets. And I know we got into this, very quickly. We have a clip that I want to play to sort of give some context about why this race is so important. For those of you that may not understand what's going on in New Jersey, here's a video that explains a little bit about what's happening there today.
Let's take a step back. Here's a little bit about the candidates. On the Democratic ticket is U.S. Congresswoman Mickey Sherrill, a former Navy helicopter pilot who flipped her congressional district from red to blue in 2018. She's a mom of 4, and she says her top priority as governor would be making New Jersey more affordable.
Cost of living is such a huge issue. It's always important, but right now it's become at the breaking point.
Now, on the Republican ticket is former State Assemblyman Jack Citarelli. He's making his third try for the office, and in 2021, he came just 3 points away from winning with 48% of the vote. His big focus has been cutting taxes and safety.
Property taxes, electricity rates are sky high right now. We have a public safety crisis across the state. Nonviolent crime has spiked.
And while right now a majority of the polling favors Sherrill, no party has ever held New Jersey's governor's mansion in 3 consecutive elections since the 1960s.
Yeah, important context there. And Jack Citarelli seems to be talking to those economic issues, those voters that are having trouble figuring out where the money went in their pockets, man. Why are they having to make things stretch even further in the grocery store? Can he convince voters that that's not Trump's fault and give them a solution? What does he have going for them? Because he clearly does have something, Kristian. He's tied neck and neck with the Democratic candidate in this race.
So let's just start here. In 2024, according to Naleo, 15.9% of all voters in New Jersey were Latino. This is a big, big audience.
Wow.
And I think when you're talking about it being neck and neck, I think that's just where we are in American politics right now. It is just the blue team versus the red team. Having said that, I think the problem that any Republican running for office in 2025 and 26 is they have had control of the government, the House, the Senate for 10 months. The House Republican caucus has the lowest numbers of actually going into work in modern history. They have been out of session for a record 45 days.
And we're in the middle of this shutdown, which is probably going to be the longest shutdown in the history of America.
They're going to be gone for the entire shutdown, to be clear, because their whole platform is, and Jack Ciattarelli has to answer for this, we're going to take whatever money that we had for your health care, for your food assistance programs, and we are going to give it to a tax cut to billionaires, to Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, you saw them all at his inauguration.
Yeah.
You see them all paying for his crazy ballroom. It is literally a pay-for-play scheme being funded by the American people. And Jack Ciattarelli and any other Republican running in 2026 and 2025 has to answer for that. And so that is the problem that he has.
And Latino voters are very susceptible to that messaging right now because they've been under attack. They've been persecuted. You know, I mean, it's so fascinating to me. I don't think I was aware of how many Latinos there were. You know, Politico put it around 22% Latino voters. You said a little over 15%. A county like Passaic, 40%. Can you give us some context? Like, I had no idea there were so many of us up there. You know, like, right?
Well, we're everywhere.
We're everywhere. Somos por todos lados, of course. But it's like shocking to me.
You know, I'm going to take
that we're talking about. It's shocking to me that we're talking about not like, you know, the non-Anglo voter. We're talking about the Latino voter making a difference in New Jersey on November 4th. That's crazy to me.
It shouldn't be. And I think part of our problem here is that we don't have grace in this country the way that maybe we should. And that,
Right.
you know what, a lot of those voters did vote for Donald Trump. And there should be grace to be able to say, you know, you voted for this guy, you thought it was going to be one way, it's the other way. And now you need, you know, you can do something about it, and you can vote for Mickey Sherrill. And I think we do have to be able to say that, because I think it's hard. It's hard what happened with the Latino vote and what happened with our community. I feel this all the time. Anytime I ever put something on social media about the Latino vote, I inevitably get, you know, hate stuff from me, like, oh, Latinos are getting what they deserve because they voted for Trump. So I'm just like, let's have some grace. Let's be, you know, these folks made a mistake, which, you know, that's fine. Maybe they don't want to admit it. Cool, don't admit you made a mistake, but go vote for Mickey Sherrill. Because
I mean, I just think in my personal life how hard it is to make amends, how hard it is to admit that I fell short as a person, or that I didn't live up to the standards that I'd set myself. And then think about that and magnify that on a scale where, like, it's consequential and it's the difference between whether or not your Theo and Thea gets ripped from the streets or not. You know, I mean, the videos that we see every single day, we're focused on immigration, we're focused on social justice issues. How much from what you're talking to your colleagues, your peers, you know, the other operatives and strategists on the ground there, how much of what we're seeing is going to make a difference? Or is it the economy, which we've also seen be a top issue for, you know, for our peers?
So I think we have to, like, unpack what the economy is. And I think it's important, particularly when we're thinking about Latino voters, because it's not just cost of living now, it's unemployment. And people don't realize this, but for Latinos who are between the ages of 16 and 24 years old, right? This is working age Latinos. The unemployment rate is 13%. It is very high. That is COVID level unemployment for young Latinos in this country. And so how do we speak to that, right? That's the economy. That's cost of living, that's unemployment. But it's also this other thing. Okay, so in addition to everything costing so much, my kid has to carry around a passport. I have to carry around my passport. Am I an American, even though I'm a United States citizen? I'm a naturalized United States citizen. Are they going to take away my citizenship? Because they can. And so, yes, on a very profound level, it affects our community. Now we have to do the organizing work to say there is an alternative. There is something that we collectively can do to go and vote. Because I do think we're fighting cynicism. I think a lot of people in the community are like, oh, I don't need to vote. Or why would I vote? Nothing changes. And I think we see what happens when we, vote the wrong way or don't vote at all.
Don't get involved. My response to people who throw cold water on voting is that there wouldn't be so many rich old white men working so hard to make it so difficult for you to vote, or gerrymandering, or drawing the lines in a capital, where it's going to make consequences hundreds of miles away where you live. They wouldn't be working so hard if it didn't matter.
To that point, and I think it's really important, I want to underline something here. The goal of conservatives and Republicans under Trump, the MAGA, is to divide us with immigration, with xenophobia, so that they can take all of our money and give it over to billionaires and give it over to the mega rich. And why do they do that? Because they believe maybe that it will somehow trickle down to people, that these companies, hire people and so on and so forth. I would ask anyone watching this, do you have more money in your pocket now than you did a year ago? Does your family feel safe now more than it did a year ago? And I think most people would say no. And I think there's a reason, because these guys don't care about workers.
We're seeing the echoes of that in the Mamdani Cuomo Silva race. While you're here, I want to ask you about something that came up earlier this week. We had Pablo Manriquez on, editor of the Migrant Insider, and he said something that stuck with me. He claims, and survey of one, that the Democrats didn't do enough to insulate our community and protect our community from these raids that we're seeing right now when they had the power. As a Democratic strategist, how do you respond to that?
That's a good question. I think up until very recently, the party was very united around, strong border security, strong interior enforcement, and a pathway to citizenship. And I think since 2024, we're all over the place. And I think a lot of people that were in power before then, if they could, they would give a pathway to citizenship, give all those things.
Yeah.
But it's just the politics and everything that happened. I think our inability to talk coherently about this issue as a party has not only put immigrants in a very bad place currently, has hurt Democrats electorally. And I think we have to get to a better place on this.
I was having a conversation with a Trump voter yesterday, someone who's a law enforcement source, and they see things very black and white. To them, it's about law and order. We've seen, though, laws for them and laws for the rest of us. We've seen Greg Bravino toss a tear gas canister into a residential neighborhood, despite what a federal judge says. But I was talking to him, and he seems to think that this is necessary, a sort of overcorrection from Biden opening the borders. He sees this as, it's almost like he's also one of the people that's blowing the whistle on what's going on in Alligator Alcatraz and the mismanagement of money there, so it's really striking to me. And we got down this conversation about amnesty, and whether or not amnesty is a really real possibility, right? Is this a real conversation? Do you think we've gotten to this point in this country where it's beyond amnesty, where it's too vitriolic? Why isn't anyone talking about that right now? There's so many people in this country that are moving in good faith. I think about people that have been here 30, 35 years that are sending kids to college and still in detention currently right now.
So I'm going to say something that may get me in trouble here, but it's the truth, and we should all just operate from the truth. Barack Obama deported more people than Donald Trump did.
Yeah.
Has. And did that make the country safer? Did that do anything to solve the current problems our country's facing in any way? Look, Republicans for the last 20 years have said, unemployment rising, that's immigrants stealing your jobs. Cost of living increasing, that's immigrants coming and, cutting us off at the knees with wages. We got to do mass deportations. We're doing mass deportations. Guess what's increasing? Yeah. Unemployment. Guess what else is increasing? Or decreasing, rather? Wages. Wages are down, right? Like, cost of living is increasing. Your groceries are more expensive. I thought mass deportations was supposed to solve all of that. It hasn't. It's gotten fucking worse. It's gotten way worse. Everything's way more expensive. So, from where I'm standing, if you want to come into this country and you want to contribute and you want to provide a better life from your family and you're willing to get in the back of the line and you're willing to pay taxes and you're willing to pay all this stuff, immigrants in this country pay more taxes than Jeff Bezos does. They pay more taxes than Mark Zuckerberg, than the guy from Apple,
Tim Cook,
Elon Musk. That to me is very American to have to pay taxes like that. So
Eric and I know, my executive producer who's on right now, we talked to a mom in Utah. She said she paid $50,000 in taxes. She had a small business, a home cleaning service, $50,000 in taxes last year. You know where she's at right now? She's deported in Mexico. You know what she was asking us? Why doesn't the country want our money? Why doesn't the country want our contributions? We're here to work. Why don't you want someone like me in the United States?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's insane. So Donald Trump, it's scary. Everything he's doing is very scary. I mean, the guy knows how to scare the hell out of people. Is he actually keeping anyone safe? I don't think, no.
I'll tell you what he's good at is he's good at convincing people that he is keeping people safe. He's good at convincing people that he's strong and wrong and this WWE president and he's out there. I mean, he had so much training under Vince McMahon that he has clearly brought that over into the political space. And if you were a wrestling fan from the 90s like I was with The Rock and with NWO or Triple H or all that, I mean, it is so clear to me that he's taking the blueprint from that and applying it to this. He knows how to get a stadium full of people to pay attention to him and to move the energy of that stadium. That is a power that he has that, unfortunately, not a lot of people have found a remedy towards. You know, Nancy Pelosi was really good at getting under his skin. Barack Obama also really good at getting under his skin. Donald Trump's really good at getting under the skin of a lot of people himself, though. Kristian, thank you so much for the time. Is there anything that I love having you on, man? Thank you so much for calling and just your contributions, man, to the show. What didn't we ask you that you think is important to know? What's on your mind? The stage is yours.
Georgia. I think the elections in Georgia are also really important. And I think, look, I've said this other place, I'll say it again. I feel like people are sleeping on Black Latino voters all over the country.
Yep.
I don't understand why we're not spending more money and time trying to reach them. If I'm a Democrat, that's your path back to victory, right? And I think we have to do more. And I think what's happening in Georgia is going to be very interesting, right? And I do think, look, what we are fighting is cynicism, and what we are fighting is an American psyche that is hurting right now, that is scared and that is divided. And I do think we need grace, and I do think we need forgiveness, and I do think we need to be able to come together as a nation and say no, right? And I got to use the Barack Obama quote of our time: we're not the United States of Democrats, we're not the United States of Republicans, we're the United States of America. And I think we do need to be able to say across ideologies that we should have a working wage, that we should have the ability to work hard and to contribute for our families. and that we should be able to walk down the street without fear of being harassed and detained and thrown in detention indefinitely. These are things that a year ago we were not worrying about. And so, that's my thing. If you're in New York, if you're in New Jersey, if you're in Georgia, your vote matters now more than ever, and we have to exercise it. And people are saying all over the place, "Oh, well, democracy's over," and whatever. And you know what? You got to play till the fourth quarter. You got to play to the end, and you got to leave it on the field. And whatever happens, happens. But you don't want to be on the bench for this one.
Amen. You got to play to the end. You know who showed us that recently? The Dodgers. I just had to throw that in there.
No, I don't co-sign that. I hate the Dodgers. I hate the Dodgers so much.
Oh, Kristian, what's a Chicano kid from Northeast LA to do, bro? Okay, I know Mark Walton, the owner of the Dodgers. I know all that stuff, man. My grandfather also one of the 1800 families displaced by Chavez Ravine.
The Dodgers suck.
Okay. Now we're going to end it. I loved you until that last statement. Hey, Kristian, you're welcome back anytime. Thank you also for the phone call earlier this morning. Kristian Ramos, on my best days, man, I know to lead with love and tolerance. Thanks for reminding me of that, man. Appreciate you. And that brings us to our next guest, man. Perfect segue there. Kristian set us up. Georgia. Georgia is on the mind today. Big race here. November 4th, it's election day. We wanted to come and give you this special election day special. We just had Democratic strategist Kristian Ramos on talking about the importance in New Jersey, now pivoting here to where I'm at here in Atlanta. And I talked about it at the start of the show. Voted last week, part of that early voting crowd. Why is Georgia so important? It's the first time people are going to go to the ballot box here since Trump took office. That's why you have someone like Senator John Ossoff calling up someone like Peter Hubbard, who's running for the Public Service Commission. Why does a senator like Ossoff care about what the Public Service Commission does? It's because the Democrats are up on the ballot. It's not so much about the Public Service Commission. It is about all that. We want to bring Scotty Smart in. Scotty Smart Trouble, a longtime friend of mine and somebody who has been active in the community. What's up, my brother? Thank you for joining us.
Let's start the conversation by saying go Yankees.
Man, you're going to make a Yankee hat more famous than a Yankee hat.
Yeah. I was anybody but the Dodgers as well. I'm not trying to go back to back, man. But
we know.
It was a tough series.
If I wasn't cheering for the Dodgers, if I wasn't from LA, and you know my story, dog, like I have to cheer for the Dodgers. I can't,
For sure.
I understand why people were cheering for the Blue Jays. I want to talk to you because you're in the middle of the mix, dude. Black and Latino voters are so important. You have been driving people to get registered. You have been driving people figuratively and literally to the ballot box to vote. Talk to us today, Scotty, about why November 4th, why this election is so important today for Georgia voters.
I think municipal elections, local elections matter more, right? I think that we're at a time where we're finally starting to understand civic engagement.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the delinquency that we see from the presidency has allowed people to start connecting dots between civic engagement and their personal lives. And I think from the first time in probably American history, we're starting to understand what our taxes are for. And people are starting to realize that our taxes have, a lot of times we see this big amount taken out of our paychecks that go to our government, and it's not being put towards things that assist us at all. And so I think that within local elections, as numbers are so small, like in the presidential election, we had a 60% turnout in the state of Georgia. We're expecting between 10 and 20% today. And so everybody, every single vote, every single voice, every single opinion will have a perspective and really matter to the outcome today.
What kind of conversations are you having with your peers that are disillusioned at the political process? How difficult is it? And is it your approach to convince them that their vote is so important? Like, how do you get people engaged that seem to say, hey, these elections are decided, who wins is no matter what, they're not going to be looking out for my best interests?
And unfortunately, it's times like this when it makes the most sense to them, because I've had people who've been laid off. I have had friends who family is not getting SNAP benefits, who healthcare is, the system is changing for them. So a lot of people are starting to see the effects directly to them. where a lot of times you never see the direct effects of government. And so therefore you think it doesn't affect you. But when it affects you directly, you have to pay a different level of attention.
When you see those SNAP benefits going away, I mean, I saw all sorts of social media engagement over the weekend, people giving out free breakfast, people saying, hey, if your SNAP benefits are cut off, come, show us that you are a SNAP recipient and we'll help you out. How much of an impact? I mean, people don't even really understand. Help us understand how big of a gut punch this is to Georgians.
Man,
because there's millions and millions of people on SNAP benefits.
What's the craziest thing is this is a Republican-led initiative. So SNAP affects Republican voters more than it affects Democratic voters. And, if you look at the parallels of Democratic and Republican voters, usually you have more educated Democratic voters and less educated Republican voters. And what I mean by that is lack of education would also lead to lack of higher pay in your profession. And so therefore, when we talk about minimum wage in the state of Georgia, our minimum wage is lower than the federal minimum wage. That's ridiculous.
That's so crazy. How does that make sense? And we have we have a $16 billion. Sorry, Scotty.
$5.15. And it's like, and then you have so many corporations who are coming here who are making so much money, but get so many tax subsidies and credits, but they're against socialism. And it's like, well, why don't my taxes go to things that actually benefit me, like Medicare or child care or things that I need? I don't want my tax dollars being paid for ICE to an extent. I hate when we talk about politics and we don't understand that we have the money to do the right things. Yeah. We have all of the money there to have us in a peaceful state of mind. But we've been pushed into this delusion that capitalism is somehow the good thing and socialism is somehow the bad thing, when all you see is a bunch of billionaires, the 1%ers, getting all of the tax breaks, which would be considered socialist ideas. But you see that. But as far as the poor people, we don't want to help them out, but they're paying taxes as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of people that are having to make their dollars stretch further. Groceries are going up. It's interesting what Kristian Ramos was talking about just a short time ago. He's like, I thought Trump going after the undocumented immigrants was supposed to solve all these economic problems, and it's only made things worse. Unemployment is going up. What do you think that the black voter that goes to cast a ballot in Georgia is thinking about the brown family that's being ripped away? Is that personal impact that you talk about? I want you to be honest, is that resonating? Because part of what I want to do here is build that bridge between black and brown. We've known each other for over a decade now. That's been a mission of mine for a long time. I want to get the real, what's really happening though. Do you see that, are your peers concerned about what's happening to Latino families on the streets of America?
I can honestly say that this country suffers from individualism. And a lot of people are easily to say, that don't got nothing to do with me. When we first met in 2014, we were talking about Mike Brown. There were so many people that said, that ain't got nothing to do with me. And so it really just depends on your heart. And really, if you have a perspective that you can understand the empathy that it takes to put yourself in someone else's shoes and see where they're coming from. And so in this individualism society, until it comes to your front door, until it hurts you personally, it seems like no one cares. I would say the minority care. You know what I mean? Right. Like, it's not the majority that's like, hey, I want to help my neighbor. But like you said, it's whether are these laws that are being passed, would you like to be treated that same way? Would you like to be racially profiled? Like, and as black people, we should understand that. You know what I mean? Yeah. But again, when the target isn't on you at that current time, you're also like kind of a sign of relief, but also not being, the one, but it's like you got to show up for other people, and that's real. The biggest thing we have to really get back to is we're losing our village mentality. We're losing our community mentality. And like when you talk about someone else suffering, a lot of people are quick to say, well, that's not my issue. And I'm like, well, it's all of our issue. And until we get to that, it's really a human rights issue. As a human being, how should you be treated correctly? And until we have that as the forefront and we lead with that, it doesn't matter civil rights, it doesn't matter immigration rights. It's human. As a human being, you should be treated nicely. You should be able to have the comfort of, if you go to work, you should be able to make a living that allows you to take care of your family. If that was the case, and we tax billionaires who make so much of a profit more, then we wouldn't have the situation. We have so many people who are getting minimum wage and are not able to work 40 hours a week and take care of their family.
Yeah, it's really difficult, for a lot of people to reconcile what they're seeing. Perhaps they thought they were voting for somebody who was going to go and do the law and order approach, but it seems like the government is not moving in good faith. And you're right, Scotty. We do suffer from an issue of individualism in this country, and it's almost like until you suffer, you're not really going to have, what's the incentive, right? There is an incentive to the moral person. There's an incentive to the person that has a moral compass and sees that every human being has a right to live in peace and every child has the right to be nurtured. But there are others who just say, hey, look, I need to take care of myself. The world is really difficult and I don't have time to worry about anyone else except for my own. So how do you, as somebody who is a community organizer, as somebody who's worked in this space of trying to reach the unreachable, like what gives you hope in continuing to go down this path of breaking through communities that feel disillusioned and disenfranchised?
Well, one, we have a deep, hopeless feeling about politics. But the more I study and learn civic engagement, I'm a numbers person. And when you look at the numbers, we should have more people who are willing to do the right thing when it's explained to them. What I've realized about politics over the last year, especially last year I was working with a company and we did a statewide tour of the city of Georgia. And we did this thing where we engaged Black men in 15 cities around the state of Georgia. And what I realized is we don't have political education. And why people don't engage, for one, is to not have their own ego destroyed by having to be vulnerable enough to ask for help. And so until we can ask and be willing to learn what civic engagement looks like, because some of the language may make us feel like they're talking over our heads and it's not about us. But it's like when you really look at it, it's a numbers game. And the more we show up, the more we win. And so what drives me is the idea that have we really worked the system in our favor? Because there's a set rules, right? And any rules can be manipulated into your favor if you understand them. And I feel like, especially in a state like Georgia, that's what's been turning purple. But if you look at a lot of the red counties in Georgia, there's a lot of Black people and brown people in these counties who never show up. So I always ask them, okay, you giving up on the system, man, so to speak, yeah. But have you even tried to work the system in your favor? Have you showed up at this lowest level? Because today we're going to see some people, I guarantee you there's an election won by less than 500 votes.
Oh, without a doubt.
Won with less than 100 votes. And we're talking about mayors of Metro Atlanta. You know what I mean? And so when I worked at a race about 4 years ago, and we had someone win by 8 votes in South Georgia. 8. And he turned around and changed a lot of the laws on there. And so when you see the small wins, that's what gives me hope to say, hey, if we can really put our boots on the ground and really communicate with people at a level where they understand it. A lot of people get intimidated by politics by the language. And I'm like, and so what I try to do is make it digestible. Like, no. This does affect you. This is what we always get back to is who do we hold accountable for what we're talking about? Because even on that tour last year, I understood that a lot of our issues weren't presidential issues. It was local politics issues, but you don't know who your state representative is. And then you don't know who your city councilman is.
Nikema Williams, Liliana Bakhtiari.
County commissioner is. You know what I mean? You know your school board member is. Like most people, I've been working in the school board elections this year. Most people in the city of Atlanta don't know that 50% of their property tax goes to the school board, whether you have kids or not. So
and it's crazy to me. 10 to 20% is the figure that you said. Is it going to be the estimates of people that go out and vote today? 10 to 20% of registered voters.
If that is 20%, we'd be a win.
That's insane. While I have you, last few minutes, any predictions here? You got Andre Dickens, the mayor of Atlanta, on the ballot again after his strong push for Cop City. You have Peter Hubbard, who's getting an endorsement from Senator John Ossoff because he's been designated as the most vulnerable senator in 2026. What does he care about a public service commission? He cares that the Democrats come out to vote. You got on the other side, Fritz Johnson, who's been endorsed by Governor Kemp in this race. And then, what else do you have here? What else are you looking at? I mean, does Dickens?
It's so much. I think that, like you said, when we talk about connecting the dots, I think that we're doing a good job here. I've seen a lot of pushes lately and letting people understand what the Public Service Commissioner, how that relates to your utility bills. I think that is going to get some people. But also, we have to understand the history of the state. There's been nothing but Republicans in that position for 20 years. So at what point do we say this isn't working?
That part.
At what point do you say, okay, I see the increase, but it's the education piece. And what I get frustrated with sometimes is that we have a lot of organizations in Georgia that do a great work, but they're centered in voter registration, vote or die. And it's like, but we're missing the education, the civic engagement piece. As far as prediction goes, Andre's pretty much running uncontested.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
I mean, there's Dr. Love helmet, but
okay,
it's
cool. With the public service commissioner race, like you said, we just need different, and we've allowed Georgia Power to have a monopoly because most people, what I learned throughout this process, which I didn't know, if you live in a county where your county governs, then you're not affected by this. So for instance, right, I date a girl, she lives in Walton County. Walton County has their own power grid system. So when her power goes out, it's not by Georgia Power, which is ran by the Public Service Commissioner. It's ran by her county. And so therefore, other states have their own grid system. And so we have to be able to know how this process works. And we're at this anti-intelligent or Jerry Springer ridiculousness of just BS, just negativity. And I'm just like, we have to be aggressive more with our intelligence. That's from my LA guy, Nipsey Hussle taught me that. He said, be aggressive with your intelligence because these loud, ignorant people, and we see it daily. Now you're like, hold on.
Strong and wrong, Scotty.
That don't even make sense. When I'm like, wait.
It doesn't, but it sounds like when my jazz teacher told me, and if you're going to make a mistake with the trumpet, make it strong and wrong. And like, that's all I think about when I look at Trump. He's out there and he's strong and he's wrong.
And he repeats it. He repeats it. And it's like, there's no way the president continues to repeat something that's not true. It'd be like, just ask ChatGPT if that's true. I promise you.
Man, you know why I love you is because you are able to connect the dots with people and make things digestible. You're able to basically, you have your foot in two worlds, right? You have your foot in the political world, but you also have your foot in the streets and on the pulse of the community, man. And you're able to bridge that divide and really try to lessen that gap. Thank you for all the work that you're doing, man. You're welcome back anytime on Nick Valencia Live, man.
You know the love I got for you, man.
Hell yeah.
You was at me when I was at my very first protest, and I was like, it's been 11 years later, man. Like I said, I've graduated to a community organizer. I'm a field director right now. I'm looking at just continue to work, but that's the biggest thing is to make the conversation digestible, to say, hey, I can comprehend what you're saying. You know what? I can get involved. And that's my biggest thing. I appreciate, that's the biggest gift I have is to take something. I'm such a nerd, as you know. I'll just be here all night like, you know what? I didn't know that. So I know that the average mind didn't know that. You know what I mean?
Amen.
So I'll be just sitting here just digesting information and thinking about how do we create content that encourages people, that doesn't belittle people. What I've always seen is people get in these positions and they talk down on others.
And they talk at people or they,
like, one of my favorite Malcolm X quotes is, don't condemn others for not thinking how you think or reacting how fast you react, because at one point you didn't think this way either. And so I have to always revert back to who I was before we met, before I started showing up to protest, and be like, 21-year-old Scotty and 38-year-old Scotty probably would not get along. But I have to figure out how to make the conversation to where I'm like, hey, young king, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Not knowing, but don't feel like you can't ask a question either. And that's what I think we have to do. We have to make safe spaces for vulnerability for those who don't know, to ask the uncomfortable questions and be like, hey, bro, I really don't know what y'all are talking about.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not involved. So now if you explain to me that dang, they're taking taxes money out of my. No, you're getting this money taken out your check regardless. I don't care. They're taking a big portion out of your check, especially if you go up in pay grades. You know,
Right.
they're gonna hit you for it. But
Hey, Scotty, we got to leave the conversation there. We got another guest waiting for us, man.
I
God bless
appreciate
you, brother.
love. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome back anytime. That's Scotty Smart, longtime friend of mine. Used to spend a lot of time with me at the CNN Atlanta Bureau, man. Good guy, good guy. So grateful to see him getting involved in civic engagement and politics here locally. We wanted to finish the show with a series that we have been bringing to you regularly with the focus on loved ones who have family members, fiancés, husbands who are currently in immigration detention. And earlier this week, I was introduced to somebody named Taylor Sperling, who joins us now from Louisiana, where she has been following the detention of her fiance, who she belovingly calls August. Hey, Taylor, thank you so much for joining the show. I really appreciate you coming on here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you helping to get our voices out there.
One of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is because it's become apparent to us that there's a lot of attention on the Democratic cities, on these blue cities, places like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York. We see a lot of people out with their video cameras recording, people standing up to federal agents on the streets. And then you juxtapose that with what's happening in red states like where you're from. You know,
Yes.
You currently live in Tulsa, Oklahoma,
Mhm.
but your fiance was detained in Arkansas. Talk to us about what happened, how he was picked up, and where he's at right now currently.
He was on his way home. He was just outside of Fort Smith, Arkansas. He was stopped by a highway patrolman. He was never given a reason for the stop. Throughout the series of questions, the questions were all very odd. You know, they were pretty much directed at where he was from. He's a black man. He has a British accent. He has a passport from Equatorial Guinea. And when these questions started getting a little more targeted, I got worried, but then the cop cleared his license, said he was good to go.
You were on the phone the whole time. That's how you know what's going on,
Yes.
right?
Yes, I was on the phone the entire time from the point before he got picked up or before he got pulled over until I showed up and forced us to get off the phone.
And when you were listening to what the arresting officer was telling him, something stood out. Like you remember you telling me, I want to make sure you're not one of those illegals
Yes.
running around here.
Yeah, so
Tell me what you heard.
He had told him, you know, he was good to go, cleared him to go back to his truck. And then as he was walking back to his truck, he stopped him. The cop stopped my fiance and said he needed to check and make sure he wasn't one of those illegals walking around. That's when I was officially put on guard, but, you know, his paperwork and everything is all good. I thought it would be fine. And then 20 minutes later, I showed up, and shortly after that, we were forced to get off the phone, and I didn't hear from him for another 2 hours. And he was
You had told me, and he was in ICE detention. You had told me that he had come here on an F1 student visa. When did he arrive in the United States? And the reason that they're holding him, it's my understanding, is there's a technicality. He didn't physically stay enrolled. Can you explain to us like why they're holding him in custody and the reason that they're giving?
The reason that they're giving is because he's been out of school for too long, but he has been enrolled in online schools. He just changed from his original school pretty quickly after he got here due to some personal reasons that he was having. He came here in, I believe it was May of 2022, and has been here ever since. He moved up to Tulsa about 8 months ago, and we met 2 months after he got here. And we've been doing, especially since he met me, we've been doing everything. We've been talking to immigration. We've been trying to transfer schools to one in Tulsa. We have been getting his I-10 number. We've been talking about what steps we need to take to get his green card once we're married. Everything was in the works, and you know, so that there wasn't really anything more that we could do to prepare for this kind of situation.
From what we've seen, though, you know, for a lot of people, they think you marry an American citizen, all of a sudden you're safe, but there is a whole formal process you have to go through applying for a spousal green card. Did he ever express any concern, given the political atmosphere, that he wasn't dotting his I's, crossing his T's, that he could be susceptible to something like this because they were going after people for just the minorest of infraction?
You know, he was very oblivious to all of this, honestly. Even with me telling him, you know, I am former Army, and while I was in the last year or two, I really started to see a change in things, and it really started to worry me. And I've kept an extra vigilant eye on the politics of the country, and I tried to warn him. And both of us wanted to eventually get out of the country anyways. America is not our end goal. It never has been. But we thought we would have time. He especially thought, that there would be nothing, because he's a friendly person. He's a kind person. He's a young person. He has all of his documents in order. So he just never thought that it would come down to the fact that he's a black man with an accent.
Do you have an attorney? I mean, what's the state? He has a hearing,
Yes.
master bond hearing on the 17th, or a master hearing on the 17th?
On the 17th. We do have a lawyer. We've had to change lawyers once already, but the new lawyer that we have has been amazing, communicative, and just making sure that he treats August as a human being and not just another number on the page. And he's making a lot of moves, and they've had a lot of success with cases just like his in this specific area. So we're very hopeful that we can have him home pretty soon.
Well, we hold out hope for you. I want to pivot now to talk about the conditions that he's currently being held in. He's at the Wynn Correctional Facility, and what is it? Center?
Wynn Correctional Center, yeah.
Wynn Correctional Center in Louisiana, in rural Louisiana. You were telling me and describing that they have to melt ice in order to drink clean water, that the water that comes out is brown, that the food that they get is, just tell me the circumstances that he's currently being held in.
So I do want to preface and say that this water is not just going to that facility. This is at the town nearby. This is kind of everywhere, but at the facility, it seems to be the worst. The water is brown. It is not really drinkable. All their food is made in it. Anything, they're able to buy stuff like ramen from the commissary, and even that has to be made with that water. So what they do is they get ice from the ice machine and they melt it in the microwave, and that's how they drink water. They're woken up at 4 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. to go have breakfast every morning, and the breakfast is minimal. They have to walk outside, and it's cold out. They do not get warm clothes given to them. They have to buy that from the commissary, which is it's an extreme amount of money compared to the amount of everything else that's in there, and the amount of money that people are already spending on lawyers, and to even communicate with them, it costs money. It's like $5 for 20 minutes of conversation. So everything in there costs money.
And you're putting money on his commissary? I mean, what happens to people that don't have a loved one like you waiting for them on the other side?
Exactly. He's told me that, the country that he's from is the only Spanish-speaking African country. And so he is fluent in Spanish and English. And he said before he came there was only one other man that could speak, that was bilingual in both Spanish and English. And there's a lot of people, he said, that have signed papers, deportation letters without knowing what it was, that, had no idea how to fill out their forms that they were given to request to speak to family members, or they had no idea how to operate the phones to speak to family members, so he's been trying to help them since he's been there. But there are a lot of people in there that have no idea how to do any of that. And then also once they do, they have no access to funds to be able to get to that point.
One of the things I heard that was really sobering from somebody like your loved one in custody was that they don't need to, their loved one didn't need to worry because they were surrounded by a bunch of other people like them, good people. Contributing members of society. Yeah. Is that what August tells you? Like, what kind of people is?
Absolutely. Everyone there, no one deserves this. It comes down to, it's like the gentleman you had on just before me, he said a lot of stuff that I really resonate with. And these are just human beings, and we're treating them like, like they're, even criminals don't, there's nothing in here. And I want to point out something, when it comes to, I feel like a lot of people from the other side do not understand this. And, we can scream that they're not being empathetic, that they're not understanding where we're coming from all we want. But that, in my experience, has kind of fallen on deaf ears. And the one area where I feel like they really lock in and actually listen is when it comes to their money. And what they do not understand is our tax money is paying for every single person that is held in ICE detention, that is held in these facilities. Our tax money pays to get them there. Our tax money pays to hold them there. Our tax money pays to deport them. And there are so many people that are in there right now that are either completely legal or have just a small little issue with their status that will take, a week or two going to an immigration office to fix. and yet we're paying thousands of dollars just to hold them. You know, we are wasting more money doing this than allowing them the freedom to get out and do it, because especially when they're in there, they have no ability to quickly solve these things. You know, what could take a couple weeks will take 6 months, and that's our money that's paying for them while it's happening. And it's just there's a lot that I've figured out throughout this process that I had no idea about until I was in it. And again, like the gentleman before me said, you know, I've been highly aware of everything that's been happening in this country for the last few years, but when it comes to really understanding the depth and level and severity of these situations that these people are going through, I was not aware of that until I myself was faced with it, until my fiance was in it. And you know, I don't blame people for only being able to handle what they are capable of, you know, seeing and experiencing for themselves. But it is a lot. It's a lot more than people think. There's a lot more that goes into this. It's affecting us all in every aspect of our lives, and we don't even know it.
Taylor Sperling, whose loved ones at the Wynn Correctional Center in Louisiana. I mean, running up on time here, but I, you know, this has been such a great interview. I have to ask you before we let you go, if you could make a plea to President Trump for the release of your fiance, what would you tell the president?
My fiance is a good man. He was excited to be here and to start a new life and to begin again and to use his experience here to change the world eventually. And he's still going to do that, but the longer this goes on, it's hard. It's hurting him. It's really hurting him that his dreams and goals and everything that he thought of America is the sad reality is it's not the truth anymore. And I don't know if I would have anything to ask of him. It would just be that message, really.
Well, Taylor, thank you so much for coming on with the message, and thank you so much for sharing the story about August. If you want to read more about Taylor and August's story, we have a full article out on nickvalencianews.com. And Taylor, just please stay close to us. We know that you've been talking to Angela De La Valle, who's a friend of our show. We've been following her story. Stay close and stay in touch with us. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. That's Taylor Sperling, whose loved one, her fiance, currently in custody. And we want to end the show here by bringing you back a familiar face. It was a couple of weeks ago. We were focusing on Chicago, and we had independent photographer, Chicago-based photographer, freelancer Mike Kelly, who brought to us some very alarming images of a priest, a member of the Presbyterian Church there in Chicago, who was shot at a point-blank range by a federal agent outside the Broadview detention facility. Well, that priest is back. He's out on the streets. He's not letting that slow him down. I wanted to show you what he's up to.
Jesus told his followers to be with those who are persecuted. Where are those who are persecuted right now? They're being abducted and held in cells where they are only given food and water as a reward for good behavior. There are children being zip-tied and put in the back of U-Haul vans. Which side do you think Jesus wanted his followers to be on? Let's talk about it. I'm sure you go to church, you're looking away. I know that this is hard. I know it's hard. I know it's hard.
Coming out with the club.
I believe you're a brother in Christ. I would like to know what you think. I would like to know what you were taught in Sunday school. Love your neighbor, love your God, the two great commandments. We're here standing out of love of neighbor and out of love of God because our conscience demands it. What does your conscience demand? That you tase protesters who are here peacefully, calling for justice and righteousness and peace? Is that what your conscience demands? I see you, sir. Tell me. What do you think the scripture means? If it does not call you to be meek, to lay down your weapons, and to believe the good news, that the kingdom of God is near, and it is a kingdom of justice and liberation and peace.
That was Reverend David Black there. He mentioned brother in Christ. He was talking to law enforcement officers there on the other side off camera. I am also a brother in Christ of Reverend David Black. And I want to make that clear to anyone who has criticism about where we are coming from this. Every day I hit my knees and I surrender to Jesus Christ. I believe that this mission that we're on is one that is a higher purpose and driven from somewhere that I can't take full credit for. And just like Kristian Ramos reminded us earlier today, on my best days, I know that I need to lead with love and tolerance, and that if I believe in God, then I need to rely on God. And that if I believe that God made all of us, then even people who I don't like are God's children. And that's the hard part right now, when we are pitted against each other, when the president of this country sows division and fear, and he's able to win off of it. You know, the optics work for him. They work in his favor. I want to let you know that we're not letting up here, man. We're not letting up. Things are only getting more serious in this country. There's only more and more federal agents on the streets of America, and there is clearly racial profiling happening. If you don't believe that, just go see the videos all on our social media, which prove that federal agents are targeting people solely because of the color of their skin. And as Reverend David Black said, what would Jesus do? Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate you guys helping truth go viral. And as always, have a great day on purpose.